Hi, everybody. Good morning. Hope you got your coffee. It's going to be a big quiz today. Welcome to Liz's Quizzes, and I'm Liz, and I have a very special guest today. Let's all give a warm welcome to Tony Ortega.
Hi,
Good morning.
Liz.
Hi. How
Thank you
is
for
your?
having me on this morning.
Glad to have you. Honored to have you.
Well, it's just really thrilling. Your book, the TikTok work you've done. But what I pointed out in my story this morning over at my Substack was that I'm really indebted to Mark Ebner because it was Ebner who wrote that amazing story about your brother and who came to me about 7 years ago and said, you should really try to connect with Liz.
Hmm.
Philip's brother, Liz Gale. You should try
Mhm.
to talk to her because I think she's got a great story.
Mhm.
And so I reached out to you and we did some talking, and the result was a story I'm still really proud of, where you described the incredible situation you were in with your mother.
Mhm.
And I'm just so happy that we did that. And then, of course, you had your amazing episode on Aftermath.
Mhm.
So I'm just happy that I've been part of the whole story for you.
You have been. You have been. Um, It's been a wild, wild ride. I think when did you say that first story was? 2000.
2016. We did our
Yeah,
story in 2016.
yeah, that's right. And that was the first time that I ever well, and you know what? Before that, I went to your book tour.
Okay, the year before.
Yes, and you had written the book of it's the Miss Lovely and
The Unbreakable Miss Lovely, my book about
thank you.
Paulette Cooper. Yeah.
Yes. And that also was a huge thing for me because I feel really lucky to be able to be in this position. Like, look at this microphone in my own home talking about Scientology. And then I think back to Paulette Cooper, who was one of, if in case anybody doesn't know this old chestnut of a story, she was one of the first people, journalists, to criticize Scientology and wrote a scathing review and book of them. And they went after her like,
For 15 years.
yeah, the worst you could possibly imagine, psychological warfare, just like the worst. And I know for a fact that I wouldn't be able to even be able to talk today or put a book out like I did without her work.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, when she spoke, she wrote her book in 1971,
Right. Hmm.
and in those days, it was just so risky. And L. Ron Hubbard, in particular, was really I think the fact that I think Hubbard hated it that this attractive, tiny woman in Manhattan was making him look so bad, and it drove him crazy.
Yeah.
And so he put the whole GO on her and tried to destroy her. And, those early pioneers really did a great job for all of us to make it more possible to write about
Yeah.
Scientology.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, she went through hell, man. I'm glad she's here and L. Ron Hubbard's not. Boom. In your face. Um, yeah, yeah, that's so interesting. Well, and I read your no, I was gonna say about your book thing. That was you came to Portland and I
Yep.
had two support people with me because I had never been to anything anti-Scientology ever, and I was terrified. And I had one of my best friends on one side and another friend on the other side, and I was shaking.
Wow.
And yet I remember at the same time feeling like, wow, I wish my life it was worthy enough, like I had taken a stand enough to be a part of what you were doing. I guess if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
No,
yeah.
I had a lot of experiences like that on that book tour. I went to a lot of different places, and people would come up to me that had been so terrified to say anything.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, the environment's changed a lot. I'm so glad that people can tell their stories.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in this new like SBTV loose network over here, it's great that everybody has their own platform, I think, too, because nobody can like censor anybody else, nobody can shut anybody down, just out in the world in general with your stories. It's so great to have an outlet like this.
Sure.
So, um, well, a lot of people are excited for the quiz. I think we might want to get started. Oh, Juliana loved your book. That's nice. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces over in my chat. I'm really glad that you guys are all here. Look at this. Oh, my heart is full. My heart is full, Tony. It's a really fun community over here. All right, let's see. I'm going to start this. Are you ready? Are you ready?
Well, I'm sure I'm going to fail spectacularly, but I'm ready.
Nah. I will say though that most of the feedback I've gotten are the quizzes are too easy about Scientology. It is shocking what this community knows. I was having such basic things, and they were just like, Liz. They were like, my first couple of quizzes, I think I was offending people because I'm like, what year was Scientology founded? And they're just like, are you
That's not an easy question.
What's
Most
the
people get it
answer?
wrong because Dianetics came out in 1950.
Uh-huh.
Scientology in 52, but Scientology as a church in 53. And then Scientology as a physical church in 54. And then Scientology as a Hubbard church in DC in 55. Which date do you pick?
I went with 53. Misinformation in my quizzes. Now I'm wishing I made these questions harder. Let's see, sir. All right. With no more waiting, here we go. Scientology quiz. Who is master of the Scientology knowledge universe? Will it be Mr. Tony Ortega? For the record, no shame in getting any of these wrong, and I had to Google every single one of these.
That's the only way that when you make progress is you make mistakes and check them out and figure out what's right.
Yes, exactly. I love it. And I want to say this is the last day. I will do more Liz's quizzes, but in case you guys were wondering why I'm doing them every single day, it's for my book. I do want to say thank you. Look at this panel of guests I've had on here, Tony. We've had Aaron, we've had you, we've had Nora. Chris Shelton was on yesterday. Marilyn, I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she crochets like Xenu dolls and stuff. The best. We had No Culty Vibes, Cassie Marie. R.M. Gilmore did the cover of my book. She was my first one. We had Apostate Alex and the Degraded Daughters, Alicia and Vanessa. So this is going to be the Holy Grail today. Let's do it. Start. It's been a long time since I said that. Okay. Like an old school rummy board, I'm going to tally you for your correct points. Are you nervous? Okay, we're going to start a little easy. It's just a little easy. Question number 1, and in the chat, there are no multiple choices today. That would be way too easy. So if you have answers, throw it in the chat, and we'll see. We'll see if Tony gets to it first. How much he has to think. Question number 1. David Miscavige claims Scientology cured him of which illness as a child?
Right. So Ron Miscavige in his book talks about the fact that David had this chronic asthma problem. And one of the reasons why Ron looked into Scientology for them was, of course, Scientology always claims that it can cure anything. So they went into Scientology to cure him of his asthma, and it seemed to have helped. But of course, the people that worked closely with Dave say he was still on very heavy steroid type medications well into the recent years. So
right.
I have a feeling he probably still has asthma, but yeah, that was the claim, that Scientology cured him of his asthma.
Let's see. It looks like some people knew that. You are right. You are right. It is asthma. And I bet you're also right that he still has asthma today. All right, 1 point for Tony Ortega, 1 point for everybody in the chat. You don't have to spell the answers right to get them. Just shout them out in your living room, Marilyn. Your dolls, your Xenu will know. Okay, question number 2. Again, we're starting easy. Where did LRH take his daughter Alexis when he kidnapped her as a baby in 1951?
Yeah, I've been meaning to really dig into 1951. It is the wildest of years for L. Ron Hubbard because Dianetics had come out in 1950. It was a huge hit. He had people all over the country forming clubs to do Dianetics. Mm-hmm. And then it all fell apart in 1951. His marriage with Sarah Northrup. And of course, they had the baby, Alexis, right about the time the book came out. And he had this bizarre idea of punishing her by kidnapping the baby.
Right.
And he actually had like his friends do it for him. There's all these crazy details that I've been meaning to tell that story again one of these days. But anyway, yeah, one of the things he did
One of
was
them.
he took Alexis to Cuba
Yeah.
and then kind of turned the baby over to this older woman and her daughter. And yeah, it was just terrible. And he eventually, what he was trying to do, Liz, was he was trying to put enough pressure on Alexis that she would stop. She was making public pronouncements about what a crazy,
Oh, on
violent,
his wife, on Sarah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and Sarah was saying these things, and it was in the press that Hubbard was
Yeah.
this maniac, and he was trying to put enough pressure on her that she would knuckle under. And so, sure, it worked. You know, he gave her the
Right.
baby back. She signed a statement, and she never criticized him again. So that's why
Right.
he was going to these extreme lengths, was to try to shut her up. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's the same thing he tried to do with Paulette Cooper. He
Yeah.
just like tries to put all this force and intimidation to just shut them up. What
Yep.
a rude dude. Okay. You are right. That's 2 points. Did everybody else get that? I'm gonna look and see if someone there were mixed answers in the chat. Looks like Holly and Cat Jack got it. Somebody said Mexico. Someone said London. Oh, good. We're educating the folks. I love it. All right, let's see. Here we go. I considered that one an easy one for you. Havana, Cuba. Yep. All right. Question number 3. Which year did Anonymous announce its war on Scientology on YouTube?
You know, it was right after the beginning of the year that the of 2008 that the Tom Cruise video got leaked to the internet.
Yes. Yes.
The Tom Cruise video with the black turtleneck where he
Mhm.
talks for 9 minutes, that was
Yeah,
actually filmed for the 2004 IAS gala,
I remember.
but it was 4 years before it got leaked.
Okay.
And Mark Bunker was involved, Patty Moyer was
Yeah.
involved. That got out, and then it got yanked down.
Right.
And that's what got Anonymous got upset about, was
Mhm.
clearly Scientology was trying to censor the internet. And
Right.
so it was early 2008 that Anonymous turned its focus on Scientology and changed everything.
Changed everything. I remember being staff at no, I had just left staff. I was public in Portland and getting called in because I had missed that event, like at their event night, and I had to watch that Tom Cruise video, that whole event in the bookstore, and every Scientologist was supposed to watch it 3 times. That I was already like questioning Scientology, but I got called back in, and then they said you have to watch it 3 times, and I just remember thinking, why'd you train me? One of the things in Scientology is you're supposed to duplicate. Like you're supposed to completely understand things and have this ability to like totally understand things. And I'm like, why would I watch it 3 times? I got it. But I was really embarrassed when that Tom Cruise part came on. I was like squirming in my seat, and all the other staff members were behind me, like kind of loving it, like really pumped up. And it was so weird and bizarre.
Well, and just a small note, that 9 minutes of Tom Cruise talking and seeming like a maniac, it's actually part of a larger 30-minute video where they talk about Tom and how he's ambassador to the
Yeah.
world. And I actually put that online at the Village Voice,
Did you?
and I don't know how many people have actually seen that, and I don't know if I still have it anymore. But that was
Right.
fascinating to see the full 30-minute
Yeah.
because they put out so everybody at the IS gala that year in 2004 had to sit through this 30-minute presentation about Tom Cruise, including that 9-minute interview. And then Tom got up on stage to get his Freedom Medal of Valor from Dave. And they,
Mhm.
they hugged it out like bros.
Yeah, they do that. It was offensive, really, I think, to Scientologists because they were going on and on about how Tom Cruise was like the most dedicated Scientologist in the planet and had done more for Scientology than anybody else except for David Miscavige and L. Ron Hubbard himself. And people watching this for the third time were people who had dedicated their whole lives to
I heard that from a
Scientology.
lot of people, Liz. I heard that from people that
Yeah.
were in the audience, and they said, look,
Yes.
they were Sea Org members. They worked around the clock. They dedicated their whole
Yes.
lives. And then Dave was up there saying that this actor was the most dedicated Scientologist he knew, and they were
Right.
offended.
I was offended as well. I mean, not for myself because I certainly didn't earn that title, but for my parents, people like my cousin. It's like, what about the 14-year-olds in the Sea Org? think they're pretty dedicated, and they don't go home to whatever fluffy bed you have, Tom. A friend of mine calls him Tomothy Cruise, and it's my favorite. Um, Good job. You got that answer right, by the way. You're good with years, huh? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I see. I see.
I
3
can't tell you what I
points.
had for lunch yesterday, but for some reason I have this thing with years in Scientology history.
Yeah. Let's see. Here we go. All right. Let's see here. Question number 4. When Scientology first moved to Clearwater, Florida in 1976, what did they call themselves? Their organization.
Well, it was 1975, and
Uh-oh.
they had, Hubbard had been running Scientology from a ship at sea for 8 years, from 67 to 75. They were in the Mediterranean, they were in the Atlantic, and then they finally ended up in the Caribbean. And I think Hubbard just got sick of it, and they landed at Daytona in 75, and then he found, he decided to target Clearwater, and so they wanted to buy the Fort Harrison Hotel and the Clearwater Bank building without anybody knowing. And I may get this part wrong, Liz, but I think they called themselves the United Churches of Florida. Is the fake name they used when they bought those buildings. And it wasn't until Mayor Cazares noticed that whoever this was that bought the Fort Harrison had young people with billy clubs guarding it. And he's like, why do you need to guard a hotel? That doesn't make any sense. And he started asking questions. And that's when he finally realized, I think it was January 76 was when Gabe Cazares finally realized this was Scientology. I think that's how it went.
Wow, man. It's funny is this was one of the first questions that I made, or and I was debating with a good friend, and we were like, is it too hard? Is it too hard? And there's 2 names. You are right. Now, in the research I did yesterday, the shell company actually bought it was the Southern Land Development and Leasing Corp in 1975, and then in the beginning of 1976 they leased that to the United Churches of Florida.
Okay.
Which I guess for me, I was just like, this is so weird. Like, they were just shady from the beginning. How shady is that?
Right.
Wow. Good job. You definitely, wow. Good
Well,
job.
one thing I got a hold of, I got to look that up again. I got this incredible audio tape of Jim Dunkelsey getting directions from L. Ron Hubbard about how to do this, about to go into Clearwater, take things
Oh,
over, be quiet about it. And Jim authenticated it for me. So really interesting. But he Hubbard did not want them to know that he was taking over. And, they were being sneaky from the beginning.
yeah. So bizarre. So bizarre. I'm glad they got caught, but it didn't do that much good because they're like all over Clearwater.
Well, then once Mayor Cazares sniffed it out and started talking about it publicly, then of course they tried to destroy his life, just like with Paulette.
Exactly. Isn't that the one where did they stage a hit and run or
They
something
staged a
like
hit. They
that?
staged a hit and run in DC. He was visiting
Yeah.
DC, and they staged a hit and run to try to ruin his reputation. But also, they were spreading rumors that he was having affairs and stuff like that. They just tried a number of different ways to try to destroy his reputation and his life.
Right. That's the name of the game. Okay, good job. Oops, wait. I pressed it twice. There we go. Well done. Well done.
Thank you.
Man, you're nailing these. Now I'm worried. Okay. Let's see. Not very many people got that. Ooh, we're making it hard for the audience. Yes. Are you ready? You're smiling. You know this one. Question number 5. Which famous song was written at the Fort Harrison Hotel before it was purchased by Scientology?
Right. So there's some famous photographs of the Rolling Stones out at the pool at the Fort Harrison, and Mick and the guys were there. And gosh, I might get this one wrong, Liz, but supposedly while they were there at the Fort Harrison, they wrote Satisfaction. Is that right?
Oh, let's pull it up and look.
I might be wrong on that one.
I'm gonna let you sit in this not knowing for a second because you are right. You are totally right. That's funny. I didn't know this before researching for this quiz, and I was a little girl hanging out around that pool often. I only known, I was standing where they stood or whatever. Good job. Okay, let's see about this one. Ooh, who is question number 6? Let's see if everybody got it. A lot of people got it. A lot of people knew this. I just learned this yesterday. So love that. Love that for all of us. Okay, question number 6. Who was the original inventor of the e-meter?
Right. So it's called the Hubbard electropsychometer, and Scientology did everything it could to make it look like Hubbard invented it, but really he took it over. A man named Volney Matheson, I believe, was the original creator of the e-meter, and Hubbard just basically stole it from him.
You are amazingly good, and that is a very hard name. Good job. Good job. Okay, and you're right. Like all things, that was one of the best ways for me to deconstruct out of Scientology, was to learn that L. Ron Hubbard stole everything. Everything is stolen, and you can chase it back to like another source, just like here the e-meter, and then you can kind of, for me, was easy to decide something's sort of worth and value if it wasn't associated with L. Ron Hubbard anymore. Like study tech or even like past life regression or different types of therapy. It was really nice to be able to separate them. So one more stolen thing.
Well, I think experts like Steve Hassan say that's one of the key ways that to help people break out of the thinking is just to focus on the leader. Are they really infallible? Didn't they make any mistakes? And I think once you start thinking about, well, maybe Hubbard didn't invent that himself. Maybe Hubbard was wrong about this. That helps to begin to crack that, ceiling, I guess. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that kind of thing.
I find that to be totally true. Like just from my personal experience. Absolutely. Okay. Man, you got them all. I was secretly hoping to get to slide one by you. You didn't know, but we'll see. Ooh, he's making a face. He might not know this one. They're getting obscure, I realize. Question number 7. Scientology's cruise ship, the Freewinds, was built in which country?
That's a good question because they didn't buy it new. They bought it used. Jeffrey Augustine actually wrote a really nice, like 3-part history of the Freewinds for me at one time. And he's gonna hate me if I get this wrong because I loved that series. And I'm gonna say it was originally built in Sweden, and I'm probably wrong about that.
Okay, some people are saying Bermuda and Aruba. I know why. We all know why they're saying that because that's where it's at. Let's see. It's Finland. You heard it here, folks. I stumped Tony Ortega on one question. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I don't know much about it either, other than it was like a proper cruise ship before they had it.
Yeah, it was. I think it was used. I think it was used up there in Europe for a while before it was, Scientology bought it and brought it to the Caribbean. I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, that sounds about right. I just had this wackadoodle idea that how fun would it be? Because one day it's going to be like decommissioned, get our hands on it, and we can throw an SP party, like a Freewinds yacht party when they go bankrupt. We can all fundraise for that.
Yeah, and then we can have a Rolling Stones party at the pool at the Fort Harrison.
Oh my gosh, goals. Hashtag goals. Actually, I've had a lot of, I'll just tell you right now, between you and I, I've had so many personal goals come like true or whatever. I don't know what the right words are. From this book. I've had some connections from people. I've had some like, I don't know, full circle moments. It's really powerful stuff. Okay, here we go. You got the next question. Moving on to number 8. Hey, who wrote this book? Who wrote the book, The Unbreakable Miss Lovely, and how the church tried to destroy Paulette Cooper? Who wrote that?
Well, I started writing about Scientology in 1995. And then by 1999, in Phoenix, of all places, and then 1999, I had moved to LA, where I'm from,
Okay.
and was writing about Scientology again. And I'd get emails from people from around the country saying, "Oh, that's great. You should keep after that." And I got a couple emails from this woman, Paulette. who was saying, you're doing great, keep it up, this is great. I'm like, that can't be the Paulette. And it was. And she had reached out to this journalist in California just to say, good job. And so years later, when I was at The Voice in New York, I thought I would reach out to her because it's been a while. And she started telling me things, and I realized that the story she was telling about herself was very different than what was online and that we all thought we knew.
Right.
I mean, at that point, Wikipedia actually had her being born in Auschwitz. All right. So yeah, just totally wrong. And in fact, she didn't even know some of the stuff that she wasn't even sure how she survived the Holocaust. So once we started researching that together, we found some incredible things. And then I pitched her this idea, let's do a book. I just really enjoyed the fact that I got to kind of set the record straight on some things and even help her find out some things about her childhood that she didn't know. And then she's gone and done even more herself with her memoir and everything. So yes, I am the author of The Unbreakable Miss Lovely, How the Church of Scientology Tried to Destroy Paulette Cooper.
You sure are. That this is how I knew you'd get at least one right. No, I'm just kidding.
One, yeah.
And then do you have another book as well?
Well, then what happened was she came to me and she really liked the work I was doing at the blog. And she said, you should collect some of your best pieces for a book and let me publish it.
Yeah.
And I told her, I will only do that if you write some essays to introduce the various sections. And so we did that. So we put out a book called Battlefield Scientology.
I have to get that one.
And it consists of some of the better stories from the bunker. And we've grouped them into, like stuff about celebrities, stuff about the history of Scientology, stuff about, various controversies. And that at the beginning of each section, there's an essay from Paulette. So it was a combo that the two of us put out together.
That's super fun. Yeah, I really look up to her. I think we all do, but I just had the craziest idea. What if you printed out every single article from your entire blog history and you put them in a set of either green or red, like volumes? The full thing, like the tech volumes. That'd be funny.
Okay, but you know who has done that already?
Who? Scientology. OSA.
When we were at the Monique Rathbun lawsuit in Texas, and was really intense. It was really intense in court, and Scientology had like a dozen lawyers there.
I remember
and they had all these boxes on carts.
Yeah.
And they started putting stuff on the overhead, and we realized they have printed out every single page from my blog, Marty's blog, Mike's blog. So you joke about the fact that every story on the bunker is printed up in some red volumes. They have that at the OSA headquarters at the Church of Scientology.
That is so insane. I love this comment too. Printed on goldenrod. Yeah, that is so weird to think about. Like the physical space that exists somewhere. It must be a lot. You've been on that blog and before that, the Village Voice. I don't even know. What has it been? 30 years? Is that too many years?
1995 was my first story at Phoenix New Times.
Okay.
I also wrote at New Times Los Angeles between 99 and 2002. I was editor-in-chief of the Village Voice from 2007 to 2012. I started writing daily about Scientology in April 2011 because of what was happening with Marty Rathbun down in Texas with the Squirrel Busters. And I've been writing daily for 12 years and started up my own website, The Underground Bunker, in September 2012.
Wow. Yeah. Gosh, you've been going at it for a while. And yeah, Mitch, actually, I don't know why I call this person Mitch. I smushed that entire name into all those poor trees. I know. Scientology, you can make a big difference if you just switch to some hemp paper. Let's evolve. All right, good job. You got that one right. The hardest question of the day. Are you ready for the next question?
Yeah.
Are you ready to roll? Okay. Question number 9. Which Scientology process asks, have you ever done any illicit diamond buying?
Well, that sounds like a question from the Joburg. So my guess would be the Johannesburg security check, which Hubbard wrote in 1961, I believe. Am I wrong?
You are not wrong. You are absolutely right. And there are some other questions on here. I won't even read them out loud. I don't need to, but they are bizarre. They are bizarre. There's one, security checks like are something that I'm really pissed off about, actually, Tony. Just between you and I and all the people in here, particularly when you have children doing them. But I don't want to spoil the next question by talking about it. So let's do
Okay.
this one.
Okay.
Number 10. Can you name one additional security check?
Oh boy. Well, I don't know if this counts, but in 2012, when Tom and Katie split, and people were asking me, why did Katie want to leave? And I pointed out that Surrey was about 6 years old at that time, which is about when kids start to do their thing, and that there actually was in Scientology a children's sec check that they could ask kids as young as 6. And so that was I posted that at the Village Voice. I don't know how many people were familiar with that, the children's sec check. And the most creepy thing about it, Liz, the very first question in the children's sec check is, has anyone asked you not to tell us something?
Yeah. Yeah.
So right away,
So creepy.
the kid is being basically forced into a situation of tattling on their own parents.
Mhm.
And so that's, I guess that's one that comes to my mind is the children's sec check of 1960, I think 61. I'm not sure.
I don't know the date on that one. And yes, that is one. And I will tell you, that is one that particularly pisses me off. I had that done to me at least 3 times, one of them by my mother in our home office when
Oh,
I was
wow.
8. And the
Oh,
thing
wow.
is I wasn't even a bad kid. One of those, I mean, I guess a relative term, but one of those times was just in preparation for going to Delphi. It was just like to clear me of my whatever overts and withholds so that I could survive well at Delphi, which is Scientology boarding school. Um, so I'm very pissed off about that one. Very pissed off,
I
just for the
understand.
record. And
Right.
you are absolutely right. That is one. I got these off Wikipedia. I know there are also tailored sec checks, like in the Danny Masterson trial, for example. It came up that he uh, had a tailored 2D, so that'd be on like intimacy, marriage, children, physical, relational stuff. Um, so yeah, the other one that's wild is this whole track. Have you ever looked at the questions on that one?
I don't know if I have.
Oh, well, if you ever don't have a story for the day and you want to pull up that old gem, I think it's even crazier than the Johannesburg check because it's questions about your whole track, which is like all of existence. And we know there's like alien stuff on there. There's craziness. It's a lot.
Wow.
Um, and probably very expensive to have done. All right. You ready for the next one? You got that?
Yes.
Okay. There's 15 questions on this quiz, so we're
Okay.
almost there.
Okay.
Okay. What secret documents were Pat and Annie Broker rumored to have in their possession after LRH's death?
Well, my memory of what Marty Rathman said was that Dave was really paranoid about the fact that there were additional OT levels that Hubbard had written that Pat was holding on to. So like OT9 and OT10. And so after Hubbard died, they just dug through everything up at the ranch trying to find that. And Mike and Marty have both said they found nothing. There was nothing there. It was just a rumor.
You got it. Quick shout out to Robin. One of the people I love so much is in our hi Robin. Okay. Look, I'm interviewing Tony. I'm doing a quiz with Tony. You are right. It was 9 and 10. And you are right that they also nobody seems like they ever found it. And I was told that it was like they were forged and that Pat and Annie Broker were actually like really bad people and it was all there wasn't anything. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. Question number 12. On Same people. Scientology PIs, private investigators, followed Pat Broker for over 25 years. During this time, Pat moved to Colorado, Wyoming, and which international country?
I was so fortunate. When was that? What year was that? I don't remember what year. 2015. I don't know. But I got real lucky, and Ray Jeffrey tipped me to this situation that these two private investigators
Mm-hmm.
who had trailed Pat Broker all those years were willing to talk. And so I flew to Texas just to sit down with guys. And I
Wow.
got in the car. It was Ray Jeffrey, his legal partner, and these two former PIs and me. And we drove from San Antonio all the way down to Corpus Christi. And that was my time to interview these guys. And so I got to know them pretty well. And yeah, they told me a lot about what it was like to follow Pat Broker. They were very cautious about where. But like, for example, they told me at one point they literally rented the house next door to Pat's. And this was back in the late 80s when, remember, we were just getting cordless phones for the first
Mm-hmm.
time. This was even before cell phones, but
Mm-hmm.
we were getting cordless phones, and there was a base in your house and then a unit, and you could walk around the house without having a cord. Wow, that was
Yeah.
fun. Well, there was a radio signal
Right.
between the base and the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys gave Pat Broker one of these phones as a Christmas gift because they knew they could actually intercept that radio transmission from next door. So they gave Pat Broker a phone that they could then listen to next door, and so, stuff like that. They were telling me
Wow.
amazing stories. And yeah, they told me at one point he went to the Czech Republic, and they didn't go. They hired, I'm pretty sure they hired some local PIs
Oh, really?
to keep tabs on him in the Czech Republic. Yeah.
Oh, my
Oh,
goodness.
right. I mean, they might have gone over there some, but they couldn't. It wasn't the kind of place where they could watch him 24 hours a day
Yeah.
the way they could in the United States. So I'm pretty sure they told me that they actually hired local guys to watch him there.
Wow. That'd be way less conspicuous also. Wouldn't it be strange if you moved to another country and you're like, "Hey, my old neighbor's here, like,
Yeah.
renting the house next to me?" That story about the phone is actually a little bit terrifying to me in general because, like us ex Scientologists, we're like a little, some people say we're paranoid. I say you can't be paranoid if the threat is somewhat credible. Um, but yeah, new fear unlocked. Thanks for that. Appreciate that. This is funny too. I was hoping, I knew a lot of these stories I'd even gotten from you, and I was like, maybe he's written so much that he'll just forget about some of them. But you are, oops, let me get this back up here. You are absolutely correct. But that's fascinating. It makes way more sense to have some locals. They blend in better. Um, the money is what astounds me, how much money they were paid. And that actually really pissed me off too, because my parents are not, like, my dad had businesses when I was young and we had a lot more money. Um, but there's, how do I explain this? It's frustrating to see people you love investing in Scientology and not in themselves or not their retirement or stuff like that. And then you hear how much some of these private investigators make. And it's like, why do people I know then like mortgage their homes a second time? Why do they go into credit card debt or take out their 401ks when you don't need the money if you're paying big bucks? Anyway, I'm preaching to the choir.
Another interesting thing about American Arnold was that it helped me understand, because we all knew about noisy investigations. I mean,
Yes.
I'd been through them myself. And of course, when you see Mike Rinder being followed around Clearwater, so obviously, we all know that Hubbard told his people, look, not just follow these people, make sure they know they're being followed. Okay. And that was, all these investigators, they want you to know that they have their eyes on you. But with American Arnold, this was a different kind of operation. Their job was to keep tabs on Pat Broker without Pat Broker ever knowing it. That kind of ghost investigation, this was the first time I really got a sense of that, and I was amazed by that.
That's bonkers. Quick question. Did I just flicker? The power at my house just turned on and off.
Wow. You're a little bit
Yeah. So
low res to me
glitchy.
right now. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm on my phone right now. I'll switch back to the other internet in a minute, but it might be a little technical. I don't know why that happened. It's weird. It's because we're talking, Tony. And you're right. You're right about all those things. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question because I actually didn't. I'm nervous now. I got nervous, guys. I'm nervous. Okay. I know you're going to get this. Number 13. What year was Scientology's first and earliest tax exemption awarded?
That's a good question. I don't know if I'm going to get this right. So the progression was he came out with Dianetics in May 1950. In late 53, he decided to try and the religion angle, he called it. He literally called it the religion angle. And I think he got tax exempt status for it in 57 and then was stripped of it in 67. But he still never paid any taxes, so that by the time they were trying to get tax exempt status again in the late 80s, early 90s, they had a gigantic tax bill that they'd never paid. And that's why they absolutely had to get it. And they got it in between 91 and 93. But I'm guessing that the first tax exempt status was 57. I'm probably wrong about that.
Honestly, I don't even remember the answer. Let's look. 56.
56.
Because but it is tricky because that was just the Church of Scientology California.
Okay.
And then just the Washington D.C. church in 57, and then they lost it, I guess, the very next year because
Okay.
they weren't really acting like a religion, which is funny because then I was a kid around the time in 1993 when they were really pushing the like we're a religion, and the What is Scientology book and the catechisms and all that crap. Yeah, I don't know. Is there any movement that you're aware of right now that is like moving
Well,
towards one of them?
the problem is that it would take so much resources and time and money to undo that.
Mm-hmm.
You need to motivate the IRS to take on that battle.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Rinder, I thought, put it best. He said to me, he said, look, Tony, the people that would make that decision is not, the ultimately the IRS commissioner would sign off on it, but the people who would make the decision, okay, let's open this up again and possibly take away their tax exempt status, that would be some middle to upper level management folks. And he said,
Right.
those people are faced with a decision. Am I ready for this to be the rest of my career? Because that's all they'll be doing for years.
Right.
And look, I think, partly through our efforts, but I think the government realizes that Scientology is weaker now than it was 15, 20 years ago, thanks to people coming out, people like the Headleys and Jefferson Hawkins and Mike Rinder and everybody, and all the work that Leah's done. I don't think there's any question that Scientology is in a weaker position now. So the IRS maybe has even less motivation to go to war. It's like, look, they're dying on their own. So for that reason, I just don't see a big effort for the IRS to take away their tax exemption. I'm actually a little more interested in the Department of Justice looking at David Miscavige's obstruction of justice and abuse of people. That to me seems, a financial extortion of people. That to me seems more fruitful and more possible than the IRS deciding to take away. But, I know why people are frustrated because we see them. I remember there was an LA church where they were bringing in illegal immigrants to work as church people. And the IRS took their tax exempt status away like lickety split. So we know they can do it, but are they prepared to go to war? And I right now, I don't see any indication that they are.
Yeah. And if I know anything about Scientology, like they have people working in the IRS. That's probably one of the top places. Look, if I was an evil mastermind and I knew everything that I know about Scientology, I would say fill the IRS with people who are people. So I don't know. I don't seem to think they stopped any of their old guardian office tactics. I don't have a lot of faith in that idea. So Yeah, and that's the other thing, when you pick a fight with Scientology, you do have to be ready to take on a lifelong monster. Same thing if you sign somebody up for a Scientology mailing list.
That's right.
It is for life, for life. Okay,
Very good.
let's see, we have just a couple more questions. Good job, you definitely got that one right. Well, did you? The year was in there.
It's up
Now
to
I'm not
you.
so sure.
I said 57, and 57 was in there, but I don't know. Maybe you correct. Maybe 56
Half a
is more
point for
correct.
you.
Half
Half
a
a
point.
point.
Okay,
We can do
very good.
whatever we want. Um, Question number 14. What is Earth? Was Earth, I suppose I should have written. What was Earth's previous name according to OT3's Xenu story?
Yeah, I just sometimes I think about that. You know, you're a Sea Org member in 1967 or 68, I can't remember which, and you're out at sea, and you're in this course that Hubbard is giving lectures on this ship.
Hmm.
First of all, I think that just seems awful to me. But you're in this lecture on a ship, and he starts telling you about 76 million years ago when there was this confederation of planets,
Yeah.
and this overlord Xenu had an overpopulation problem, and so he tricked people into coming in for tax audits and then knocked them out and packaged them in some glycol mixture and brought them to a planet called Tegiak.
Is that how you
And
say it? Tigiak?
Tegiak is the
All right.
planet, and
Love that.
that's where he vaporized them with hydrogen bombs, but then Xenu captured their souls electronically, their thetans electronically, and then made them watch 36 days of 3D movies, and
Mhm.
thereby implanted all the modern religions,
Yeah.
and then sent them out. Now, 75 million years ago, there were no human beings on Earth. So at that point, they were inhabiting clams and rodents and whatever. And it wasn't until humans evolved that those thetans became part of us. And so you not only you're a thetan, but there's also these thousands of angry, disembodied thetans attached to you who are still pissed off about what happened to them from Xenu 75 million years ago when the planet was called Tigiat.
I think that counts for a point. I think you get that one right. No, it is a wild story. My favorite part about some of L. Ron Hubbard's old stories like this is how short-sighted he was about technology, but how much he expected everybody to sort of believe that it was so long ago. Like, why hydrogen bombs? Just these very specific era specific technologies that it's like, really? 78 million years and that's all you've got?
I know
It's
it's just
weird.
it's not even as science fiction goes. It's not very interesting, and but I don't
Yeah,
know. And
people
but
love it.
everyone focuses on that, but I really enjoy his other lectures. I find that 1963 was maybe his most unhinged year. And if
Okay.
you see the lectures in 63, he's making the wildest claims. I think people kind of forget about it today. But
Yeah.
like,
Is that the history of man era, or
no, that's
was that
earlier.
even before? Okay.
History of Man's a little earlier than that. But in 63, I mean, he's talking about how 40,000 years ago on Earth, there were these race car drivers who were racing around on an atomic bomb booby trapped racetrack.
Love it.
And these atomic bombs would go off in the middle of a race. But fortunately, the spectators were behind special glass,
Right.
and he set the course record as a racer back then, and then in later lifetimes went back and beat his old record and didn't realize he was the one beating his own record. I mean, just
I
like,
remember that story vaguely,
yeah,
which
I
is
mean,
so
there's some
funny.
wild stories other than Xenu that I think people
Yeah.
kind of forget about.
Well, the whole space opera era. So, like, I even write this a little bit in my book. I grew up, like, that was just factual part of history. Like, you had, the colonial times, and you had the dinosaur era, and you had this space time. And so, yeah, it's just wild. I don't know, lot to unpack there. The clams one, I think, gets a lot of attention. I have TMJ. So the clams is this idea that we were all clams, like spiritually we were clams, and then the human jaw evolved from these clams. And if you have toothaches or jaw pain at all, really, or even just can get cavities, it's because of this clam incident. So that came up for me with my TMJ. I was a clam. All right. Good job. Let's see here. Good job with that. And you're teaching me so much. I'm so glad. These were the notes I look. Yeah, it's like what I read said they had things like clothes like us, trains, cars, boats, exactly like 1950. What a short. Where was his imagination that day? Blew it. Okay, I think this is the last question. Question number 15. LRH holds the Guinness World Record for most published works by one author. Approximately how many published works is he credited for having?
1,000 books. That's my guess. I don't really know.
You are so right. That is exactly what I would say as approximately. Yep, 1,084. Says this was from just a website that I looked up, but it said he was first published in 1934 and then last published in 2006. And that just doesn't quite seem like it should be because he, passed away in 1986. So I guess they're counting these like publications after the fact, and that feels a little stat pushy. Like,
Well, he had magazine stories published in 34, but his first novel wasn't published till 37. Do you know what it was?
I'm gonna guess it was no. I'm gonna say Revolt in the Stars, but I don't think that's right.
Buckskin Brigades.
Oh, Buckskin. I've heard that name somewhere. Buckskin Brigades. That is another book I will not be reading.
A first edition copy of Buckskin Brigades will get you $5,000 these days.
Really? Hear that out there, all you old time Scientologists? May turn that back in. Get some of your cash back. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, let's see.
How'd I do?
You did amazingly. You have 13 and a half points.
I'll take it.
All
I'll
right.
take it.
That's right. Now we're going to go through these silly little things. The end. Let's add up your score. How'd you do? How'd you do at home? If you were at home and you got 0 to 5 points, you are a clueless clam. You're just as clueless as an early incident clam. Keep chomping on Scientology knowledge and you'll become a full-fledged OT expert in no time if the birds don't eat you first. If you got 6 to 9 points, you are Xenu's protege. You're just one reg cycle away from changing traffic lights with your mind. Learning the ins and outs of Scientology isn't easy, and you're doing a great job. Xenu is proud of you. And if you are Mr. Tony Ortega himself, with 13 and a half points, you are a BT buster. Hey, body thetans, beware. Forget about changing traffic lights with your mind. You are holding off entire hurricanes with your OT powers. Your knowledge of the Scientology world is as expansive as the whole track itself. Go ahead, squeeze some cans in celebration. You've earned it. And we're all upstat unicorns. That's going to be, I think, my new little thing. Upstat unicorns. We're all upstat unicorns around here.
Nice.
And gratuitous plug for both of our books. Check these out. They're available on Amazon. The Unbreakable Miss Lovely, Confessions of an Ex-Scientologist Pothead. Probably very different books. But once you've read both of these books, if you can get to that, you will have a very broad understanding of Scientology.
Well, they should be very different. I mean, you're writing your experiences and how you felt about things, and that's what's really wonderful about that kind of book. I was writing a history. I'm a journalist. It's not my story. It's somebody else's story. But I got to go back to original documents and interviewing people, and so I tried to put together a series, a history that told that whole story. So different approaches, but both wonderful ways of looking at Scientology history.
Yeah, I know. And I think I'm honored to be added to the same bookshelf that you're on. So 11 that for me. Everyone should be real happy for me. Thanks for playing. Remember, everybody, this is for entertainment purposes. I did the best to get all the correct information. I think even we learned a little bit, like the Czech Republic thing. So we're all learning here. Do you have time to take a couple for us to just chat about a couple of these comments?
Sure.
Okay. First, I'm going to bring up this one. Deanna Ross, thank you. Thanks for the fun quiz, you two. Do another one soon. I honestly don't think I can come up. If I ever quiz you again, it is going to be the most obscure questions in the universe. So, I don't know. Let's see here. Question, Mr. Ortega, why do you think you were never Paulette Coopered?
Who said I wasn't?
I know, I was going to say, you've handled it with such grace that everyone thinks you're unscathed.
I talked about this on both Going Clear and Leah's show that they've run a lot of the same operations against me that they ran against Paulette. Probably the craziest one was they hired an out of work newspaper reporter to pretend he was working on a story about my wife being a terrorist in order to freak out her bosses and get her fired. So that's exactly the kind of operation that they run. They spend a ton of money. They've flown private investigators all around the world to intimidate people I know. They've had their chief, at one time, their sort of chief dirty tricks PI was this guy, Dave LeBeau. Dave LeBeau twice showed up at my mother's house in California to try and intimidate her. I mean, they've tried a lot of the same things against
Mhm.
me that they tried against Paulette. But not to the extent. I mean, they were trying to frame her for a crime and get her sent to prison, and they wanted her to commit suicide. But some of the same exact methods. Mike Rinder and I got to go to court over a guy that was going to prison for trying to hack us on behalf of the Church of Scientology. So they've done illegal things. They've again sent people. I mean, I've had people in Indonesia and Israel accosted by Scientology private investigators. Okay. Opposite ends of the earth. They spend so much money trying to harass me, Mike, Leah, other people. It's just insane what they spend.
It is. It is insane. Um, do you, I guess you probably can't even answer this question, but I hope that your experience is called up to testify in the Leah Remini, however much you could support that, because I think you're a good example of this
I mean,
behavior.
I don't think they'll need me. I mean, what I've been saying about Leah's lawsuit that I think is really key is that because Scientology is going to just say, yeah, we called her names. We can call her names because of the First Amendment. We have the right to call her names. But
Hmm.
what I think, if you look at her lawsuit, what she spent her attorneys did such a good job on
Hmm.
is they're showing how these operations they ran resulted in her losing income. That
That's what you have to show. Right.
shows ended. That there was a financial impact, and that's the key to her lawsuit. And she's got such good evidence of it,
Yes.
no question. So they don't need me
Good.
talking about investigators. That won't help her at all.
Oh, well, good to know. Good to know. Um, yes, that does answer, I think, this question. Thank you. Thank you. Whatever happened subsequently to Alexis? I
Hey,
don't know. Do
Ron.
you?
You know what? I talked to her, wow, 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I had a nice conversation with her, but she just made it very clear she does not want publicity. She does not want to say anything publicly. We talked about her situation. She's got a really nice life and a family, and she does not want to upset that. So she's done her best to stay out of the limelight, and I've respected that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Um, aside from Alexis, did you see that Jenna Miscavige, who has dropped the hit? Well, she's Jenna Miscavige, is on YouTube now. Bonkers. I'm excited to hear everything she has to say. Her book really inspired me to write my story. So, okay. Gerald asks, wasn't 1951 the middle of the communism scare? What's he doing in Cuba? I never thought about that, but he was
Well, I mean,
L. Ron Hubbard.
I'm not a Cuba expert, but I don't think the Cuban changeover happened until 1959, right? So in 1951, it was still a playground for the wealth
Right,
of American rich. They'd go down there and gamble and stuff like that. And
right,
so Hubbard was going to a place that was still pretty friendly to Americans, and it wasn't, Castro and all that wasn't until 1959.
right. Wow. Good point. Good point. Um, Naomi says, what was its original name? It wasn't the Free Winds. Gosh, I think I looked. Do you know
What's up,
this? Say it again. The Boheme?
the Bohème?
Boheme.
Yeah,
Wow.
spelled Boheme, pronounced
Okay.
Bohème. Yeah.
Boheme. Good thing that wasn't a question. No. This one says, how are you two today? I'm feeling fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I had surgery recently and coming back strong, getting a little better every day. And I'm just, very fortunate. That's basically the end of my treatment. And it's just a matter of trying to get back to where I was. So a little bit better every day.
I love it. I love it. That's good. I have to pull this one up just because it's Robin. Hi. Yes. And how did you say? Can you tell me one more time how it's pronounced, Tony? T-G-I-A-C?
I think Hubbard says Tegiac on the recording.
Okay. Awesome. He's hard to understand sometimes. Weren't your grandparents there for the first class 8 course? Is this a question for me? That
I
must
think
be.
it must be you because
Must
my
be.
grandparents were never in
Yeah.
Scientology.
I don't know what a class 8 course is. I don't think that's what they were there for. I think my parents went to St. Hill. Some people have dug up some great stuff about my family. And my grandmother went to St. Hill briefing course in 1968. Uh, and then she graduated like a year later. So I don't know, but I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know a lot about my family. It's sad because I don't have the ties now with my family to ask them. So, um, I'm sure they're talking about L. Ron Hubbard. He definitely took inspiration from ancient mystery school religions. The cults he associated with early on are certainly continuations of old world cults. Yes, when I read this, I think yes, L. Ron Hubbard dabbled in quite a few high
Well,
control and
he had that notorious period in 1946. He told people that he had the most amazing World War II experience and fought in every theater and, was machine gunned in Java and all this crap. It turns out he never saw battle and he had some really embarrassing incidents and caused some problems. He ended up in the hospital at the end of the war. Of course, he wanted people to think it was for war wounds. It was actually for hemorrhoids and pink eye. And then
yeah.
after that, he decided to go to Pasadena to see a friend of a friend, and that was this Jack Parsons. And Parsons was this notorious weirdo. He was a brilliant rocket scientist, but he had this big house in Pasadena, and he rented out rooms to unusual people. And that's where the two dabbled in this Aleister Crowley, Thelema magic stuff, and they got up to some sexual rituals and all this crazy stuff. No question, L. Ron Hubbard in that period was deeply into the occult, and that he stole a lot of those ideas from Crowley for Scientology. Scientology denies it, but that one academic from Ohio State, I'm blanking on his name suddenly. He did a real good paper showing the parallels between Crowley's ideas and Hubbard's. And there's no question that Hubbard was borrowing, and of course Crowley is borrowing from, Madame Blavatsky and other things early in the 19th century. So yes, absolutely, there's a continuous line between these old world cults and what Hubbard is doing. And Scientology, of course, denies it because they want everybody to think he was a scientist and he was discovering the first scientific approach to the human mind, not that he was simply repackaging old time occultism.
Right. Which he was. Yeah. I often say, half joking, half not, but that I was raised as a witch. Because if you do think about some of the like tone 40 and this concept of like postulates and intentions, it's a little witchy. It's a little new agey, but it's a little witchy too. Thank you for answering that. Okay. Yay for upstat unicorns. That's right. We're all upstat unicorns. Streamed Hamlet said, I was in Scientology offshoot cult in Iran when I was a teen. You'd be surprised how far reaching it is, but always mixed with the dominant culture of the time and place it's adapting to. Yep. It's like a virus.
It is.
Yeah. Do you ever hear from your mom anymore? No. No, I do not. Um, my mom, anyone in my mom's position is at risk in Scientology of losing their progress, their spiritual progress, in getting in trouble, that kind of thing. And so I don't want to put her in any risk, and she's not made the choice to put that risk on herself. So there you go. Tiff, I'm so excited. I have Liz's book right next to me. Can't wait to add yours.
Thank
Awesome. And
you.
so many kind wishes here that number
I'm doing
wishing
good.
you
Thanks for those well wishes. I'm recovering. I'm recovering very
speedy
well. Thank you.
recovery. Thanks, Rain. Thanks, Subversive. I always try and read it as submersive. Thanks, Wee Wee. Way Way. I'll get all these. Yep, Mrs. J. Um, Liz is a great example about not all potheads are space cadets. See what I did there? Yes, that was very, very clever. And I've said this time and time again. It's a sensationalized title, and I am a true lover of all things cannabis. I love the hemp, I love the medicine, I love the fibers, I love the building materials. So, yeah. In fact, I was just going to post. I had a hemp farm. I was going to post some pictures. I found a picture of me with Oregon Senator talking about hemp. So, really professionalize myself here. Okay, well, that is what we have today. Let's take this off here. I'm so grateful again. How do I get
Thank
that
you
out of
so
here?
much, Liz. I really enjoyed this, and I'm just really, really excited for you and what you're doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate your support and your shout out on your website today and for subjecting yourself to my quiz. All right, folks. Well, thanks so much again for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.